This is the Double Edge Factor, where high performance meets peace of mind and faith meets focus. I am your host, Rob Manuel, and peace and blessings unto you. Before we get going, be sure to like, follow, and hit that subscribe button, because the more positive interactions you put out there, the more they push this podcast to people who've never heard it before, which, of course, will allow us to grow, reach new ears, and have a greater impact on more people around the world. And if you want to perform and live at your highest level, head on over to rodmanuel.com. That's RODMANUEL.com. Join that email list and remember to like, follow, and subscribe. All right, last week we spoke on the subject of if your blood pressure is high, so is your responsibility. And the double-edged message was, winning at work while losing your vitality is not success. It's actually delayed collapse. Sustainable achievements demand that your body can support the ambition your mind keeps generating. So, this week we're going to get into the subject of men don't avoid doctors because they're busy. Men say things like, I've just been busy, or I'll schedule it soon, or I'm fine. And on the surface, these statements sound reasonable. They sound like a man who is focused, a man who is working hard, and a man who is handling his responsibilities. But if we slow down and really examine it, the issue usually isn't time, because the same man will find time for meetings, they'll find time for flights, they'll find time for gym sessions, they'll find time for client calls, they'll find time for business opportunities. So time is not the problem. Priority is. And the underneath priority is avoidance, because you're going to the doctor. What it does, it introduces a possibility that most men would rather not face. It's the possibility that something isn't right. The possibility that your numbers are off. That means that habits may need to be changed, that something has been ignored for a very long time. And that possibility challenges your identity. The one that says you're strong, capable, in control. Because if something is wrong, now there's something that you need to address. Now there's something you need to fix. Now there's responsibility that can't be pushed aside. So instead of confronting it, many men just delay it. They push it to next week. They push it to next month. Then when things slow down, maybe. But things really rarely slow down. And avoidance compounds over time. Let's be clear. Avoidance is not strength. It's fear disguised as productivity. It looks like responsibility on the outside, but internally, it's resistance. Leadership requires truth, and truth requires confrontation. When you walk into a doctor's office, something shifts. You move from assumption to measurement, and measurement removes illusion. Medical visits expose what really is going on beneath the surface. Things like elevated A1C levels that signal blood sugar imbalance, high cholesterol that increases cardiovascular risk, low vitamin D that affects energy, mood, and immune function, borderline hypertension that silently strains the heart, and of course, weight gain that reflects deeper metabolic patterns. These numbers, they don't care about how you feel. They actually reflect what is. And for many men, that's very uncomfortable, because as long as you don't know, you can operate as if everything is just fine. But once you know, action is required. That's where resistance shows up. Some men would rather just not know, not because they're careless, but because knowing removes the ability to ignore it. It forces a decision to change habits, to adjust your lifestyle, to become more disciplined. But here's the truth. You cannot steward what you refuse to inspect. Ignoring the labs doesn't eliminate risk. It actually increases it, because issues continue to develop without interruption. Leadership, it's not about waiting until something breaks. Leadership is actually about identifying what needs attention early while you still have options before it becomes urgent or before it becomes irreversible. Strong men don't run from data. They actually use it to improve. I'm going to touch a little bit on cultural and generational patterns. For many men, it isn't just personal. It's learned behavior. It's modeled. It's inherited. Many men grew up watching examples like their fathers who say never went to the doctor, or their grandfather who normalized pain and discomfort, or men who sought out care only when the symptoms became so severe. There was this mindset also that we just had to suck it up. We had to deal with it. We had to push through it. You'll be fine. And over time, that mindset became normalized. But normalization doesn't equal wisdom. Just because something is normal or common doesn't mean it's correct. Generational patterns often repeat themselves without question. And when it comes to health, generational neglect can turn into generational diseases, like, say, hypertension, diabetes, heart disease. Not because of genetics necessarily, but because of repeated habits and delayed action. Breaking cycles. Breaking cycles requires intention. It requires someone to just stop and say, you know what? I'm not going to repeat this pattern. And that takes courage because it goes against what you've seen. It goes against what feels familiar, but courage doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes courage looks like scheduling an appointment, sitting in a waiting room, listening to those results, and then taking action afterward. Not because you're weak, but because you are responsible. You're responsible for your life, responsible for your future, responsible for the people connected to you. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about the woman with the issue of blood suffering for years. She dealt with this condition continuously. It affected her life, her ability to function, her place in society. But here's the thing, she didn't ignore it. She didn't accept it as her permanent without any pursuit. She sought help. She invested resources. She actually pursued solutions. She actually moved toward healing. And eventually she encountered Jesus. Her faith was active. It wasn't passive. She didn't just sit still hoping that things would actually change. She took steps towards restoration. And you see, that's the principle. Faith doesn't remove responsibility. It actually enforces it. It calls you to move. It causes you to act, to seek change, and to actually just pursue something better. Restoration often begins with the decision to confront what you've been avoiding. At some point, the conversation has to shift from awareness to action. So this week, I'm going to keep it simple. Schedule a full lab panel. Not when it's convenient, not when things slow down. Schedule it now. When you go in, be very intentional about what you ask for. I want you to ask for vitamin D levels, lipid panel, A1C, blood pressure readings. Get a clear picture of where you stand because clarity creates direction. Once you have that information, use it. If something is off, address it early. If adjustments are needed, make them. If guidance is required, seek it. And then make this a routine, not a one-time reaction. Make it an annual or biannual standard. Because you see, leaders don't avoid information. They actually use it. They build strategies around it. They make decisions that are based on it. And they improve because of it. You see, you don't wait for a crisis to force change. You actually change or create change before a crisis has the opportunity. And that, my friends, is called ownership. So I'm going to leave you with today's double-edged message. Courage is not ignoring potential problems. It's facing them early and fixing them fast. Real strength is in choosing clarity over comfort so you can stay present for the people who depend on you the most. And that is it for today. If this episode added value, clarity, or even one push you needed, share it with just one person who needs to hear it. The only way we grow this podcast is when you guys share it. The more you share, the greater impact we can have around the world. And if you want to perform and live at your highest level, head on over to rodmanuel.com. That's RODMANUEL.com, where you will find resources, coaching tools, and more to help you live, lead, and perform at your highest level. You can also order a copy of my latest book, Faith on Demand, which is also available on Amazon, as well as other exclusive content. And as I always say, be intentional with your words, be intentional with your thoughts, and be intentional with your actions. And always find a way to be a blessing to someone else today.